Robosource's robot cases are a great way to keep your VEX robots, parts, and tools safe and secure, whether you're using them for storage, traveling to local competitions, or flying to events like VEX Worlds. In this video, I'll be showing you how to assemble your case. These cases are constructed using ABS and plywood laminate panels, as well as aluminum extrusions. Everything slots together, making assembly quick and easy. Your case is held together by a series of steel braces. These also neatly conceal the corners where the extrusions come together. Before we begin, let's gather the tools that we'll need. First, a drill with 13/64 inch drill bit. If you don't have that, a 3/16 inch or similar metric equivalent works too. We also need some sort of riveting tool. These manual riveters are available at most stores for $10 or less. If you also have a pneumatic riveter, that's a great option too. Additionally, we'll need a measuring tape, as well as some sort of strap, such as this ratcheting strap or similar manual strap. Lastly, we recommend wearing safety glasses at all times. The first part of the case we're going to assemble is the lid. So let's get started. We're going to start off with the panel labeled P1 and 4 of our extrusion pieces labeled E1 by slipping them onto the edges of the panel, making sure that they're going to be centered along each edge. It's very important to make sure that none of the corners overlap each other, so just make sure that they all line up nicely. Next up, we're going to take our panel labeled P2 and insert it into these extrusions, and then add the extrusions labeled E2 along the edges. For your next panel, make sure you're using panel P3. This is the one that has the cutout for the latch. And you want to make sure that those two are opposite each other. So keep alternating. Next up, P2, followed by your extrusion, and then lastly P3. At this point, everything's going to be kind of loose. And that's fine, but we want to make sure it's going to stay put while we're riveting it together. So to do that, we're going to take our strap and just run it around the outside of the case. Tighten it. You don't want to over tighten the strap, because that's going to pull everything out of square, which you'll see in a moment why that's a bad thing. With the strap slightly tight now, we're going to take our corner extrusions and just slide them up so they're touching or almost touching these tongue and groove extrusion along the top. And then just repeat that for each of the 4 corners. Before we go ahead and tighten this all up, let's make sure it's a square and it's not bent or crooked in any way. So we'll push all of our extrusions together to make sure nothing's coming apart. And then with our measuring tape, measure the diagonals and just make sure that those are equal. So this one here, 28 1/4. This one, just a touch less than 1/4. So we can push it slightly. Remember, these have a bit of play in them, so it should be no problem to straighten them up. Check it again. 28 1/4. Perfect. And these two are now identical. To keep all these panels and extrusions from falling apart again, the first piece we're going to use are these corner braces. Keep in mind when you're moving your lid for the case around, everything is still a bit loose. So just be careful. I like to slide it towards the edge of the table, slip the corner piece on, and then we're going to start with these 2 top holes and drill them out. Included with your kit are an assortment of rivets to assemble your case. We recommend using rivets because they're stronger and also produce a much cleaner finish on the inside of the case. However, if you prefer, you can also use standard VEX size bolts and nuts. When using rivets on wood, you need to have a washer on the back side. So we insert the rivet, place a washer, and then we'll just do that on the other side. For this part here, we're using the small rivets. Now let's grab our rivet gun and make sure we have the appropriate size tip on it. You want to make sure that your 3/16 inch size rivets fit loosely in it. You don't want them to fit snugly. Make sure there's a bit of play so that the stems will fall off after riveting. To use the riveting tool, just stick it on the rivet and squeeze. You're going to need about 2 to 3 squeezes, and between each one just make sure you push the tool back in all the way. Once the stem breaks off, your rivet is tight, and then you can just throw that in the trash. Repeat it for your next rivet. With these 2 rivets done, we can now pull the case a little bit farther off the table and just attach our 3rd one. Same process, rivet, washer on the wood, and squeeze. I'm going to do the other 4 corner braces on this case. While you're attaching these corners, I'd recommend just taking your measuring tape every so often and making sure everything's still and square. So after we've done all 4 of these corner pieces, we're going to add some more braces here at the top. Position them just slightly underneath the upper edge, and then we'll start by drilling 1 hole. Two important things to note about these rivets. First of all, we're going through extrusion, aluminum extrusion on the back side as well, so that means we don't need a washer. Secondly, when we're riveting through the tongue and groove extrusion only, we're going to be using the long rivets instead of the short ones. So we'll start off by riveting this 1 hole with a long rivet. And then we'll do the same on the other side. If you are using a 3/16 inch drill bit, slightly smaller than the recommended 13/64, you might occasionally have to round out the holes just a little bit to make sure the rivets fit well. Now for these bottom ones, we're not going through the tongue and groove, we're just going through the normal corner extrusions. So we're going to go back to the small rivets. And we're going to do this with all 4 corners of the case. So I'm just about to finish riveting on the last corner brace here, but before I do, I want to show you a quick riveting trick. Every so often you might run into a rivet where instead of breaking off cleanly at the head of the rivet where it's supposed to, the stem breaks off somewhere in the middle. If that happens, you can just reinsert the riveting tool and bend the rivet stem back and forth until it breaks off. And then if it leaves a rough end, you can just file it down. So now that we've finished attaching all 8 braces on this lid, the lid is all done with the exception of our latches, which will come last. So let's remove the strap, set the lid aside, and then move on to the box. Assembling the box portion of your case is actually very similar to the lid. Once again, we're going to start off with panel P1 and extrusions E1. insert them along all 4 edges of the case. And once again, ensure that they're centered and the ends are not overlapping each other. Next up, panel. This time it's panel P4. Gets inserted along the edges, along with extrusions E6 on either side. Panel P5 comes next, and just like with the lid, you want to make sure that the notches where our latches go are going to be on opposing sides. Continuing on with extrusion E6. In case you're wondering where extrusions E3, 4, and 5 went, those are actually the tongue and groove extrusions. However, you don't need to assemble those because they already come pre-press fit onto your panels. Now with all of our extrusion panels together, we're going to apply a ratchet strap, once again, just like we did with the lid. Tighten the ratchet strap, but don't make it super tight. And just like with the lid, we're going to take these side extrusions and just slide them all the way up until they're touching or almost touching the tongue and groove along the top. Then we'll just push everything together, make sure all the extrusions are fully seated. However, unlike the lid, instead of measuring diagonals to make sure this box is square, we're going to make sure that it fits onto the lid. So let's just grab the lid we assembled earlier, stick it right on top, and make sure that the tongue and groove pieces all fit into each other. But one thing we do need to do differently on the case is that we're going to do the upper braces first. The reason being is that with the lid on top, we obviously can't get to the inside to put washers on the back side of the rivets, so that's why we have to start with the rivets where we don't need any washers. Same procedure as before. When you're placing your braces, we're going to make sure they're not touching and have just a tiny gap, maybe a 1/16 of an inch in between. Start by drilling out the first hole and placing a large rivet and fastening it. Again, we'll repeat this on the other side. And finishing up with these bottom holes. Keeping in mind that for these bottom ones we're going back to the short rivets. And once again we'll go around, finish all 4 corners of these, and then proceed to the bottom ones. Now that we've done all 4 of these upper corner braces, we'll take the lid off, allowing us to reach the inside for our washers when riveting the lower braces. So once again, you can slide it towards the edge of the table, slip the brace on, and we'll start by drilling these 2 upper holes. Once again, these will be small rivets again, but keep in mind when we're riveting through wood and wood only, you need a washer on the back. So after placing that washer, we'll tighten the rivet. Repeat it on the other side. And then just a tiny bit farther to do the bottom hole. We'll do all 4 corners with these bottom braces. So I just finished adding the last corner piece, and with that all done, we can remove our ratchet strap. let's just grab the lid and put it back on top to confirm that everything still fits together nicely. And it does. So the two things that we still have left to do are to add the latches and to add the handles on this case. It doesn't matter in which order we do so, but let's do the handles next. So we'll just take our latch in 5 small rivets and go ahead and insert them into each of the holes. As these are going through wood, we'll need a washer on the back as well. So for each rivet we tighten, we'll stick a washer on the back first and then tighten it. And then we'll just do the exact same thing with the other handle on the other side as well. When it comes to installing our latches, there really is no right or wrong way to do it as long as they all line up in the end, but this is the way I like to do it. So we'll start off with the large one that goes on the box itself, holding it. Very important, make sure that the edge of the latch doesn't go above this edge of the tongue and groove on both sides. So just hold it nicely in place, and we'll start by drilling out this bottom hole. And then a small rivet with a washer will hold that in place while we do the rest of the holes. Once again, confirm that it's not going up on top of the edge of that tongue and groove. So we'll just do these upper holes next. As these two on the top are going through our tongue and groove extrusion, these are going to take a large rivet with no washer. And we can just finish it off with our bottom 2 holes. These once again are going to be our small rivets with a washer on the back. Now the bottom half of the latch is attached, but we'll put the lid on next. And that will just make sure everything lines up nicely. We'll stick the upper half in there, line it up as best as we can, and make sure, again, they're not touching. Just leave as much of, or just leave a little bit of a gap. There's not a lot of play, but you don't want them to touch. And we'll start with these holes here. I'll just do one first so it's easier to hold. These ones here going through the extrusion, large rivet, no washer. And then just repeat it for the other side. So as you can see, our latch is now lined up the way it should be. And then now we've taken the lid off, and we can just do these bottom 3 rivets because they'll need washers on the back. Small rivet and a washer, and then fasten it. And then once we fasten this latch, just like with the handles, you'll just go and repeat it on the other side. You've now finished assembling the basic version of your Robosource robot case. At this point, there's 2 upgrades which you may have chosen when ordering your case, or you can purchase separately. Lining the inside of your case with foam, or adding casters, either permanent or quick change removable, underneath your case. Those are explained in separate videos. If you've chosen both, just be sure to attach the casters first and then the foam. Before we leave, I'm going to show you a quick trick to increase the security of your case, for example if you're taking it on a flight. By inserting a zip tie through the hole in the latch handle and the spring behind it, you can prevent the latch from accidentally moving. In case your case's contents need to be inspected by security personnel, they can just cut the zip tie open. You can add a few more zip ties along with a note to the inside of your lid so they can reseal it afterwards. If you have any questions or have any issues assembling your case, please send us an email. We're more than happy to help. Thank you for watching and enjoy your new case.